Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Menino, and welcome to Driven, Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we interview people, professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, on how they got to where they're at today. And zooming from the beautiful island of Miami, it's Aleksandar. How you doing, young man?
I'm doing fantastic, sir. How are you?
And you're from Serbia?
Yeah,
If I'm not mistaken, you started your first company at 16.
that is correct. I was a pioneer in the automotive aftermarket car parts space.
That is fantastic. I remember the days, and I remember trying to have a hard time getting parts.
Yes, and believe it or not, back then when the internet was still just a baby, nobody could find anything, right? We were still sort of creeping and
Yeah.
crawling through the internet, and I figured, hey, there's this thing called internet. It may end up being something great, may not, but maybe I should try to put an online business to be able to have accessible car parts for us lowrider fans back in the day.
Lowrider fans, I love that. Do you like the lowriders? I like the sports cars. I'm from Detroit, so
Well,
the
you
muscle cars.
you have a cheat code. I was never into muscle cars, though. I did dabble a little bit. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
I'm telling you, it was so much fun, and the pinnacle of my youth. I bought a 78 Z28 350 Poly 4 barrel carburetor.
Oh,
Thing
mean and
passed up
nasty.
anything. Yeah, it was dirty. And the only thing it wouldn't pass up was a gas station.
Well, I was the guy cruising at 12 miles an hour next to you in the right lane, bumping my loud music on wire wheels and hydraulics in a '69 Cadillac Coupe de Ville. So that was me.
That was I used to live in Colorado Springs, and there was a street called Academy Boulevard. And you guys, those cars were great though, man. You guys put way more effort into those cars, and love and time and money. And so you made that your first business. That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think at that time, given the fact that business in the automotive space was done sort of old school, and I was a teenager, I was 16 years old, there wasn't a lot of ways to make face-to-face business that people would take me seriously. And because my passion was the lowriders and I loved the internet, I was a computer nerd. I really wanted to explore sort of where the future can take us. But really, I've gotta tell you, I cheated the system because I wanted cheap car parts for myself. And I figured there's got to be some sort of markup difference between what's in the stores and what people pay for them, right? There's got to be a business there. So it really started from a true passion, but then I sort of took the internet, and 30 years later, I'm still doing the same thing, messing with internet things.
Nice, nice. So what do you do now?
So today I own and operate a digital marketing firm called Executive Digital here in Miami. And beyond the digital marketing agency, which services clients for SEO, web development, agentic AI, and social media, I really use it sort of again with a cheat code to launch my other startups and my partner startups. And so it's more like a pillar post of a maybe a startup or accelerator, maybe a brand development agency, but all wrapped up in one. Today, Executive Digital represents something like 200 clients and 14 of our own internal projects.
Nice. That's fantastic. So what is one of the things that you do on a daily basis that, well, not say daily basis, one of the things that one of your biggest challenges that you had to overcome in your career?
Well, there was a couple of massive challenges. There was no mentor of any kind, right? Number one, I was born in a foreign country, and so I moved here as a child, as a refugee of war, and so it was really tough to not be able to reach out to anyone, at least where I lived at the time, in the hoods of Phoenix. There was
Yeah,
no
it's Phoenix.
mentorship, right? It's what you learned on the streets and sort of the street rules of business, right? Which sounds maybe far-fetched for most people, but really those street business rules translate into business. So I learned by making many mistakes as a teenager. But as the company grew and I exited my first company when I was 22, that same company, it really became a good self-taught exercise. And so number one challenge has always been finding mentors, right? I could never align myself with someone that did something before me, even though they were very successful. That was probably the biggest business challenge. It was all whatever I figure out, whatever I can pay to the lawyers to figure out, or, head through the wall concept. So to this day, I think that's sort of stuck with me. And so people think that I rely on my team tremendously. I praise my team every day on social media because they're incredible. But those sort of key concepts from vision to execution to exit, that stuff has always been stuck with me without sort of a mentor or guiding light or doors open policy.
Wow. Yeah. See, people nowadays don't see that. The kids nowadays, they don't see, the option of mentors are vast,
It's
very
true.
vast,
It's true.
right?
And I think I feel like I've given back or paid it forward, however you look at it, because I've groomed the next generation of young entrepreneurs, especially in the Balkan American community, whether they're Serbian, Bosnian, Croatian, Macedonian. They come to me for advice. These guys are just like I was 16, 17, 20, and now much more savvy as it relates to digital or AI or anything in the space. And so I'm able to actually pay it forward and give them sort of an open book mentorship. So I've provided accelerator models, business models, ownership of their businesses partially to help them launch them. So I feel like I'm making up for what I didn't have in reverse.
Awesome. I love teaching too. Do you enjoy the teaching part or the
I
mentorship
think that
part?
I think that's my favorite is because they give me energy, I give them knowledge. It's a really even exchange. I probably take more than I give, but that's sort of by design because this way I do want them to go through things on their own. And I've had the pleasure of mentoring over 60 startups in the last decade specifically. But again, it's sort of a give and take. And I happen to inject new ideas into my brain because of their energy and because I'm stuck in a daily quote unquote grind of the CEO, right? Whatever that may mean in everybody's world. I still am able to then craft a great energy exchange that allows us to move things forward with a really new, fresh feel and look to startup ecosystems.
Nice. So I know there's a lot of competition in your space. What is one of the things that comes easy to you, and what sets you guys apart?
I think the historic experience is the number one differentiating factor because on our team, the folks who've been with me for a decade plus, we started our company exactly 11 years ago today. And this is our 11th
Wow.
year anniversary. So
Happy
we're
birthday.
celebrating. Thank you. Thank you. But I think what you have is that as the agency and the company grew, I focused on really teaching the juniors to become seniors and seniors to become thought leaders. And so again, the teaching aspect of it was I'm no good as the CEO that doesn't know how to do everything they know how to do, and then make them better at their jobs by empowering them. And I think that translates to all of our client feedback as it relates to client services on our internal startup project space. How that translates into is multiple hundreds of $1 million in valuations of our exitable companies. And so I think you've got this incredible moment that that symbiotic relationship between the team, which services clients with their feedback, plus the internal projects, startups that we handle, equals a very successful movement that continues to grow year on year out. And so that's why I said we're beyond the digital marketing agency, though there's many quote unquote competitors. We really don't see another agency like ours, even though we may do same things or similar things. Our approach to business is sort of every employee is a thought leader, and beyond an employee, there's sort of a partner of the agency inside as well.
Nice. So, if someone listening wanted to get better at what you do, what tips and tricks would you give them? What would your mentorship be?
It starts with experience. Nothing in our business equates to success unless you've gone through things, whether you're an SEO breaking websites, or you're a web developer that can't put together pages, or you're a social media expert that can't get the shot right. I think hands-on experience is the real mentorship. However, I think where many of our quote unquote competitors fall apart is that they have a clearly defined roles and oftentimes have seen don't allow the team members individually and collectively to sort of be the think tank. I've done the exact opposite. I've allowed the teams to be their own individuals within a think tank. It's sort of think tank groups that bring innovation to the table.
That really is the key to business. A lot of people, what I've noticed, like you said, put people in a box. They put them in a box. Here's what you have to do, and the whole process of doing it. Don't think outside the box,
Well, I mean,
you
it
know?
sounds so cliche, right? You say you
It
should think
does.
outside the box, then not empower the very people that you want outside that proverbial box. And it's a challenge because we're not a digital marketing agency besides in name only in executionary services. We really are a biz development, which then requires folks to not just push buttons. Actually, that's the least amount that I need. Yes, we all push buttons. I get that part. But in our specific startup ecosystem part of the company, when we're dealing with bulletproof vests or pet tracking technology or wellness products, things that we innovated from within, it becomes a challenge because you're no longer, you're not even allowed to think as a quote unquote individual for your task only. It must be done, but you are seriously part of something greater. I don't mean that in a cliche way. I mean that as a directive to grow. And that's our number one truly differentiating factor as an entity today.
That is fantastic. That is the great advice. A lot of people say we want forward thinkers, but then when they speak out about being forward thinking, they get shut up really quick. And that
Yeah.
really takes away the creativity of it.
I agree. And I think that's where you've got to pick choices. Do you want foot soldiers or do you want leaders created? And there's no right or wrong. Just speaking of the agency space, you've got, I think, 180,000 marketing agencies in the US alone. And so it's a vast number, and each one is somehow different from the other. But again, the marketing agency was born out of need for internal servicing. And only then did it become a sort of an outbound hub for client bases. We needed what we needed as experts in-house to be able to launch our startups and companies.
Yeah, perfect. So do me a favor, tell everybody what's your greatest accomplishment up to date.
I think having an incredible team of true leaders is the greatest accomplishment as it relates to business. Having three children, that is the ultimate life achievement. So that goes before everything, but because we always mix business as entrepreneurs with life, that goes first. But in terms of business, really having independent thought leaders within my organization. I did in May of this year, I received the Harvard Award for 30 years of lifetime achievement in the digital marketing and branding space for the healthcare industry. Most of our clients are in the healthcare space, though not all. So luckily, somebody out there at Harvard recognized that we're doing something right. And again, my award speech went something like, "Thanks to the incredible thought leaders on my team, I'm just the talking head, right?" But 30 years of really developing online digital ecosystem, which just provide for explosive growth. So it's been a challenge. So that's my official sort of I can go retire now type thing, right? They go, you should retire at the pinnacle of your career, but it was nice to receive a not paid, truly peer driven in a very specific space award at Harvard, and it was probably the best experience of my life as it relates to quote unquote specific achievements.
Nice. I love what you said, the thought experiment with leader. You know, that was your number one business, and then you obviously have the family that is, is probably our whys, why we do everything. Those are great answers. Hey, listen, has there ever been a book or a podcast or something that's changed your life?
Podcast probably now, but a book that changed my life was an incredible book that I recommend to everybody by Dr. Christiane Northrup called Dodging Energy Vampires. It's probably one of the few five books that I've read more than three times in my life because I had to sort of really just take on the double meaning of the book. And when you deal with a lot of people, staff, clients, partners, and all the things as an entrepreneur, that one book has always stood out. The other one being Ray Dalio's Principles. Even though it's my edition's 960 pages, I've read that book four or five times because Ray has a lot of advice. And so those two are my books that I would define as life changing because it required me to crush my own ego. It required me to have a lot of introversion as it relates to where my downfalls are, not just the constant praise, praise, praise. And so those two were back to back. So I read them both in the same year and went, oh, wow, I've got a lot to learn.
What was your takeaways from both books?
From Dr. Northrup's book, the number one was we waste so much time, just
Ooh,
inefficiency in time. Even though the book is about energies and how people, abuse you, how you allow people to abuse that proverbial energy. But it gave specific instructions that I implemented almost immediately in terms of business life, personal life, time deletion, and my calendar became my best friend after reading that book, believe it or not. So to me, that was like one of those things that I had specific takeaways that applied to me versus somebody else's experience, which is like the Ray Dalio book Principles, which is his experience and which again, great book, but simply I think that the takeaway is that you should be in control. and we're not in control. And that's a terrifying fact once it hits you properly.
The sad fact.
I don't know if it's sad, but it's just factual, right? I don't think, the emotional part is part of the book, but the takeaway is there is action beyond this, right? There's something to be done about this if you realize it. If you feel like you're doing great and it's all flowers and you're just living that perfect life with zero struggles, then it doesn't apply to you, right? Because you may be ignorant to the fact, but I was always keen to the fact something was not going right, something didn't feel right, never knew why. And for me specifically, that book was incredible.
Um, Sounds like things are going pretty well for you. And thinking about the future, have you ever created passive income without doing so much work?
I think that's the one thing that I've been truly bad at. Number one, because I've never had the ability to sort of set it and forget it in any of my companies in the last 30 years. More importantly, because it allows me to create, which I love. And so when I'm proactive every day, even to this day as a CEO, I take client calls, I deal with my teams, specific tasks where they may be stuck. And so I like being busy, but productive busy. So keeping my mind fresh, me having passive investments, it has never sort of fit the personality. However, as the three children get older, the time consumption is a big deal. And so as each company gets exited sort of on this big master Sasha plan, there's a lot of conversation within the family saying, okay, you really got to step back, and not step back like step away, but just really give some more time to yourself and to be able to include passive investments.
Cool. Um, Wrapping up the interview real quick, what exciting plans you have for the next 6 to 12 months?
So we have an incredible invention as a team in the body armor space. That is my number one focus in growing that company. It's going to revolutionize the way soldiers and police officers, law enforcement agents really experience the protection of their life every day on the front lines. And given that most of my friends are either in law enforcement in federal, local, state levels, it's a way to really not only innovate the product but bring a solution that changes the world forever. And so, if my startups were game changers in their own lane, this is a next level because it's a physical product, not a digital product. And so, it's exciting because it puts me back, sort of full circle back to 1995 when I started my first company with tangible products. And because so much of my career is tied to digital AI, tech, the platforms, fintech, martech, sport tech, those are all things out in the ether somewhere in the internet space. But we're talking about real life situations that allows my team and I to shine in this new space that we've never been a part of, and yet it completes the full circle from the digital back to the physical product. So
Do you like the physical products? We're in real estate and we love touching stuff, the buildings and the land and stuff like that. Yeah, it's full circle.
it is for me.
That's awesome. Um, Last question for you. If you could go back to your 20s, what would you do different and what would you do the same?
I would have taken more time for myself to enjoy my first exit, my first company sale. I would have not, I took 6 months off, and even that was partial because, when you're 22, 23 years old, you're full of energy. You're like, what's next? What's next? I feel like I did not do enough, not soul searching. That's just kind of weird. It's not me. I really didn't do enough
Me time. You
mental
didn't do
rest.
enough me time.
Yeah, I feel like sort of that was kind of taken from me because I had time for everybody. Even people were busy and working and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, everybody else is busy. Let me get back into something, which proved to be not a bad thing, financially speaking, but certainly I could have enjoyed that success more. But then again, we're all smarter in retrospect, right? So, but and as far as um that's what I would have done differently, is taken time for myself to just enjoy myself. Doesn't matter what that means in anybody's space, whatever that means. Maybe, create another new custom car for myself or just really enjoy the moment of success. That part sort of escaped me, right? It was on to the next one. And that's the energy I've carried beyond that 20s. And then the one piece of advice I would give myself is, if I was able to give my 20-year-old self, is that your intuition was right all along. I would give myself the do what you did, feel free to do more of it because your intuition didn't lie to you. So
No, that's great advice. Follow, your intuition does serve you well. And if it happens, then you'd like to tell yourself from the beginning, hey, do this,
Agreed.
do this, you'll do well. Awesome. I can't thank you enough. That was very informational in a short amount of time, and that's what we look for in the podcast. Listen, if anybody wants to contact you, Aleksandar, how would they do that, and how would they get in touch with you?
The best way to get a hold of me is through my social media. On the Instagram, I am known as the God of SEO. Funny enough, if you know anything about digital marketing, you know SEO. It's a moniker that was given to me 24 years ago by a very well-known media personality because of my efforts in the SEO space. So at the God of SEO, I did not give myself that nickname, I promise. It may sound a little egotistical, but it's more tied to the godfather of SEO versus the God
Gotcha.
itself. So.
Awesome. So real quick before we take off, could you give us a little SEO tricks that could help out companies?
Yes, same thing that applied 25 years ago applies today for the LLMs. SEO equals GEO. If you don't have FAQ schema, H1s, and enough content with the right structure, you don't have SEO or GEO. Anytime you hear generative engine optimization, the optimization for ChatGPT and LLMs, do not think outside the box, think within the box. Same structure that's fed to Google, Bing, and other search engines is the exact structure that LLMs take into account. Don't let people scare you. It is labor intensive, but if you own page one of Google, you will own page one of LLMs following the same structure for SEO.
Nice. That was fantastic. Thank you very much. Hey, listen, I can't thank you much enough for the info and your time. It was very kind of you, and we'll let you go. And we're gonna say goodbye to all the fans. Do me a favor, like and subscribe, and hit the notification button. Thanks a lot, Aleksandar. You've been fantastic.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.